Just arrived at the Javits Convention Center and they're having a robotics competition here. But I just entered and all I see are people playing with frisbees, so I don't know what's going on yet. I'll figure that out. So when I got to the main stage, I saw that frisbees were actually part of this competition. They were actually featured in both the first and third phase in the competition. In the first phase, the robots launch frisbees at targets and they can score points doing that. Then there's a second phase in which the robots climb up, and very few robots ever actually reached this stage, and the ones that did never made it to the top as far as I could see. But I wasn't there for the entire time. And there was a third phase in which people actually threw frisbees at the same targets that the robots were aiming at earlier. I thought it was cheating, but both sides apparently did that in every match. Now, a majority of the time was actually not competition. It was just waiting for the next competition. Part of that was just mundane things like recovering the frisbees and organizing them to get ready for the next match. Which is actually quite a lengthy process. And there was also just basic preparation right before the next competition. As you can see here, they're making final adjustments. And just the whole process of wheeling in and making final checks to see that everything was okay. So that accounted for much more time than the actual competition itself. In fact, it took up so much time, I think it was about 5 times the duration of the competition itself was just preparing for the next one. And so a lot of people spent their time doing things like cheering and dancing. And Metro Kart sword fighting. This was actually my favorite part of the event. So away from the main stage area, I found some other types of robots. They were robots that were designed to manipulate plastic donuts. The goal here is to fetch these donuts from their resting position and to place them precisely on a set of pipes. A lot of these robots actually failed to do that job correctly, and in some cases there were problems with the person operating it just figuring out if they had the right alignment, so they had to carefully maneuver around. Here we see a successful one. And a really good one is able to do 2 of them in a very short period of time. So the overall experience was interesting, but I think that the main competition was somewhat unfair, because to me this should be a competition of robots. And they allow people to throw frisbees, and apparently that scored points as well. And that has nothing to do with robots whatsoever. I mean, the robots were aiming frisbees at the same targets that the people were throwing at, but it's just totally unrelated. And so I just don't see that as being something that should be in the competition. But I did like the other robots, the ones that were moving the donuts around. I don't know if that was later going to be part of the main competition. It's a 3-day event, so maybe they had their own event the next day or the day after. But for those robots, the main problem I saw was in the design of the mechanism that was holding on to the donuts and delivering them. It seemed that all the attention went into building the rest of the robot. And I understand that the rest of the construction and the programming is the most difficult part, and so it's right that they put more effort into that, but there seemed to be a lot of neglect in what they did with the most important part, because some of them actually were held together with duct tape, and that made it really flimsy. It was a little bit flexible, and really it should be more rigid. So what happened was when they tried to grasp onto one of the donuts, they did not have a proper hold on it, and in some cases when they were trying to deliver it, it was at a weird angle because the receptacle that it was on was not holding it straight. So there were little problems like that, which ended up costing them the ability to deliver these donuts onto their targets effectively. So overall, it was an interesting experience, although I was actually more interested in the Metro Card fight than I was in the robots. I actually didn't know what kind of robots there were going to be there, and I didn't know that it was going to be standardized into 2 different kinds of robots. I was actually hoping that it would be more like androids, and maybe like a battle bot in which robots were fighting each other. I know these are high school students designed them, so maybe there's some kind of anti-violence curriculum thing that prevents them from embracing that approach. So overall, it was somewhat interesting, but I probably won't be going back to the event next year. But it was free, so no great loss, and I did have some fun in watching that.